Member for Kaluit Manarayak, Mr. Lightstone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions today are for the Minister of Economic Development and Transportation regarding the Economic and Development Agencies, Nunavut Development Corporation and Nunavut Business and Credit Corporation. Mr. Speaker, the letter of expectation that the Minister recently wrote to the chairs of the board of directors of both of the agencies, Nunavut Development Corporation and Nunavut Business and Credit Corporation, were tabled in this House in June of this year. And I look forward to the responses being tabled before the end of our current sitting. Mr. Speaker, the idea of merging the two territorial corporations into a single entity has been raised on a number of occasions. I was very interested to note that the Minister's most recent letter of expectation indicated, and I quote, "I expect the Nunavut Development Corporation to work with the economic development and transportation officials to increase the integration with the Nunavut Business and Credit Corporation." Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask, for the record, what is the Minister's position on merging the two corporations into a single entity? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister of Economic Development and Transportation, Mr. David Akero.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that work or the vision of merging is not new and something that we have been looking into and trying to work within the two organizations. As part of this review, we've learned quickly that there are two separate entities that are working for the betterment of Nunavut, and that's something that's an ongoing work that's taking place, and I strongly and I work very closely with the two entities to see how we can best serve Nunavut through each of our agencies. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For supplementary, Mr. Lightstone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Both of the Minister's letter of expectation contained a number of specific goals that I found intriguing. For example, the letter of expectation to the Nunavut Development Corporation indicated that it has been directed to work on the potential for a new subsidy in either the housing or health service delivery sectors. Mr. Speaker, as the Minister will recall, from the previous Assembly, he was the sponsor of Nunavut's territorial legislation to implement the legalization of cannabis, which has occurred across the country. Mr. Speaker, one of the primary objectives of this initiative was to fight the illegal trafficking of drugs by providing for the safe and regulated sale of cannabis products to adult consumers. Mr. Speaker, the government has made it clear that it does not intend to get into the business of selling cannabis directly to Nunavut consumers, which means that we need entrepreneurs to provide this service in the communities. I'd like to ask for the record, can the Minister confirm what direction he has given to the Nunavut Business and Credit Corporation and the Nunavut Development Corporation through his annual letter of expectation in respect to providing supports to entrepreneurs who wish to provide this service? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister of Economic Development and Transportation, Mr. David Akero.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, yes, as part of the setting up a cannabis store throughout the territory, the minister responsible for finance or the liquor board his department's been engaged in the communities and trying to see if there's any interest. And through that work, for the Nunavut Business Credit Corporations, we have received in 2021 one application related to wanting to start up a cannabis store, and that's what we have received so far. And for the Nunavut Development Corporation, we have not received any applications nor proposals related to that. And as the member indicated, we are looking for entrepreneurs to set up these stores. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Second and final supplementary, Mr. Lightstone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the minister providing that response and the number of applicants that the two corporations have received. Mr. Speaker, the federal government had legalized cannabis to accomplish three objectives. First, keeping profits out of the pockets of criminals in the black market. And second, to protect public health by regulating the product and keeping harmful substances such as fentanyl out of cannabis. And lastly, and most importantly, keeping cannabis out of the hands of youth. Mr. Speaker, as we only have one cannabis retail outlet in Nunavut, we are currently failing to meet these three objectives. Mr. Speaker, there is a correlation between cannabis-induced psychosis and early onset schizophrenia. Mr. Speaker, there's a prevalence of cannabis consumption among our youth, and I believe that it is important that we do more to ensure that, one, that information, the harmful impacts on cannabis has on a developing brain is publicly announced, education and outreach is made, but two, create a legal market to ensure that youth do not have easy access to cannabis. So, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask for my last question. Will the minister commit to working with NDC, Nunavut Development Corporation, and Nunavut Business and Credit Corporation to assist more communities with opening up legal access to cannabis? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister of Economic Development and Transportation, Mr. David Aquero.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that role of whether a store can be open or not lies with our Nunavut Liquor Commission and through their work and through that. And they've been doing a public advertisement, and they've been asking for entrepreneurs to come and learn how to open up a store. All that is available, and if there are any entrepreneurs that would like to open those, there's different various loans that can be offered, and that would be through the Nunavut Business Credit Corporations or through Canor, for that matter. And for any of that, for any of our entrepreneurs, we are willing to assist in any kind of legal activities that can be open in Nunavut, not just cannabis. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.